Hello EDUSPLORERs, thanks for joining us again and welcome back to our channel. If you are joining for the first time, I appreciate your time as always. It is vitally important for us to continue to dive into Africa's strategic relationship with its global partners. At this moment, the huge challenges that the continent faces cannot be underestimated. A bulging middle class and a growing population, and more importantly, a youthful graduates coming out from across the region. These are critical times across the board as the continent of Africa is picking up itself to review every strategic relationship that is hard over the past centuries. Africa, no one needs to tell you, you are on your own at this time. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this because the geostrategic partners who engage the continent of Africa fail to recognize that the continent have enormous challenges that at this time it needs to start going closer to partners that provide the alternative. This is important because at the moment we saw countries like the country of South Africa came under tremendous pressure, but again stood up its grounds in the United States of America's White House. We've seen Egypt pushed back and forth, but it stood its grounds in regards to the issue in Gaza. More importantly, Djibouti refused the United States of America with regards to its own intention to strike the Houthis using its own territory. Looking at Kenya, one of the countries that have gone very close to the United States of America, has recognized that the United States is not as strategic a partner. That's the reason why they are moving closer to the country of China. More importantly, the United States of America has taken a backseat at this moment, playing the American first, losing soft power in the continent of Africa. Whereas the reason why the country of Russia is engaging the continent like never before seen. China has made it clear, we're not going to go anywhere, we're going to continue to work with you across the board. More importantly, the European Union is sitting on the fence, knows nothing to do, talk about immigration, failed to engage the continent of Africa, its Saudi neighbor. Why all this important? It is important because if we go back to the pandemic, the continent of Africa has learned that the Russia-Ukrainian war is an indication that no one is coming to save you. When the countries across the continent of Africa were faced with the particular challenges in terms of the pandemic, no one paid attention in the continent. Africa, to an extent, was left alone. It's important to know that there were some countries that engaged the continent of Africa. Talking about vaccine, African nations had to sit in the back burner and wait until they were told on when it's necessary. In that regard, the president of the country of South Africa came out with an outburst and said this in Paris.
I played a key role as chair of the African Union during the COVID period. We felt like we were beggars when it came to vaccine availability, when we felt we needed access to vaccines, and the Northern Hemisphere countries had bought all the vaccines in the world, and they were hogging them. And they didn't want to release them at the time when we needed them most. And we felt like we were begging. And at times it felt like they would just be droppings from the table, that yes, we will give you that and that. And let me tell you something that generated a lot of resentment. We were all at one, that even as we were going to address an issue of the war which has had a negative impact on the African continent, which is the rise in prices for food, rise in prices for fertilizers, we were clear that we are not going there as beggars. We are not going to ask for a favor to both Ukraine and Russia. We were going there to say, open up the Black Sea Channel so that the grains and the fertilizers should go into the world market. So we were not on a begging mission, even as we are in great need as a continent and all that. That should go to demonstrate that Africa should never be seen as a continent that needs generosity. We want to be treated as equals.
If we remember what happened during the pandemic, the continent of Africa was abandoned and the continent had to fend for itself with regards to looking for alternatives and support that it needed at that particular time. As the continent was going through a difficult moment, African leaders, one of the most strategic countries in the continent of Africa, South Africa, the leader received a phone call warning them that the flights from the country of South Africa will be banned as a result of the Omicron. Why is that relevant? It is relevant because the continent of Africa must review its healthcare system, build systems that can also allow its citizens to have complete access to regards to healthcare facilities. It is important at this time that African nations continue to go closer to partners that provide alternatives from the soft strategic power.
I also got some calls from Europe, and the calls were so paternalistic. They were saying, "Hello, President Ramaphosa, we've heard about this Omicron. I am sorry to tell you that we are banning travel to Europe from South Africa and Southern Africa." No discussion, no attempt to hear what our views are. And I'm saying that the relationship needs to be mutually respectful. We need to respect one another. The African presidents respected me as we respect one another. But from Europe, I just got a message of saying, "We've banned travel, thank you, goodbye, see you next time." That's not the way to conduct relationship. So there needs to be consensus, there needs to be discussion. And I want to talk about the issue of access to vaccines. We have made a proposal which is supported by more than 100 countries. And what we have said is we want, and this comes back to what the youth were saying as well, they want to know whether they have a continent which will help to develop their skills, where they can thrive. But what do we want? We want to be able to make our own vaccines. And we will deal with the issue of reluctance for our Africans to take vaccines. But we want to make vaccines. We don't just want to fill and finish and package, which is what we are being offered. That we want you to build capacity to fill, finish, and package, and we will send you the drug substance. And we say, no, we want you to relax the intellectual property rights for a while so that we can make the drug substance, because we have the capability. And there are quite a number of countries on the continent that can. And right now, we've got countries like Egypt, Nigeria, Ghana, Senegal, Rwanda, South Africa, and Kenya. Easily, they have the capability, the manufacturing capability, and we are saying we want to be able, we want to go beyond just getting the substance from Europe or wherever, filling and distributing. We want to make the drug substance, because that is where the intellectual property resides. And that is where we want our young people who are epidemiologists, who are scientists, to see that there is a future for them. Then they will not go to Europe, they will not go to America, they will stay here, because they will know that they can work effectively and display all the skills we have. Now, what does the world, the northern part of the world do? They say, no, we know what is good for you. We just want you to do fill and finish, and that's it. And we say, no, we no longer want that. You did that long ago when you colonized us. And when you raped and pillaged our countries, we're saying no now. We have the capability, and we want to make all these things ourselves. Now for me, that is smart partnerships. We want to deal with Europe. We want to deal with the northern part of America and so forth on a respectful basis. We, as Africans, are respectful and have always been. And maybe that's where our mistake is. That's why we were colonized in the way that we were colonized, because we respect too much. And we say, respect us as well.
If you look at Africa's growing and emerging middle class, extensive population growth, the challenges cannot be ignored. At this particular time, considering the population of Lagos, which is growing tremendously. The population of Cairo is exploding so far. If you look at the graph that I'm speaking with, these are an incredible period in the continent of Africa's history. The city of Nairobi's population is expanding tremendously, and the pressure cannot be emphasized so far. That's the reason why African nations are going closer to partners who can provide them the opportunity that they need at this critical time in their history. It is important to know that one country has answered Africa's call and has continued to build in facilities across the region, engaging African countries not just from roads, bridges, supplying of funds in several areas, but it has gone beyond the ordinary and to provide African nations with state-of-the-art facilities and support them regards to their healthcare development. In that regard, China has proven that it is in the continent of Africa for the long run. The Chinese engagement in the continent of Africa cannot be ignored anymore. Despite what the global media will speak about, they have demonstrated it from airports, roads, bridges, a whole lot of other infrastructure that can never be ignored. That's the reason why China has been actively involved in building and supporting hospitals across Africa, reflecting its commitment to strengthening healthcare infrastructure and fostering diplomatic ties with continent in general. Those initiatives are part of the Chinese broader engagement strategy, often linked with the Belt and Road initiatives, and are seen as the demonstration of Chinese support for Africa's development. If you look at Chinese geostrategic involvement in the continent of Africa, cannot be emphasized. China has proven that it understands Africa's problem, and that is the reason why it's investing in Africa's healthcare system beyond recognition. China has put its money where its mouth is. For example, notable Chinese-aided hospitals in the continent of Africa. If you look at the Mawasekwa Hospital in Zimbabwe, also known as the Chinese-Zimbabwe Friendship Hospital, this facility has constructed phases, which the first completed in 2012 and the second in 2019. It offers services including maternity, pediatrician, and also radiology, and more importantly physiotherapy, serving a population of approximately 136,000 people. If you look at other aspects, geostrategically, the Timunesh Beijing General Hospital in Ethiopia, operated in 2012, and also named after Ethiopian Olympic athlete Tinemuneshe Dibaba. This hospital was funded by the Chinese government and provided specialized medical services to the Addis Ababa region. More importantly, in the country of Cameroon, the Yaoundé Gynecologic Obstetric Pediatric Hospital in the city of Yaoundé, established in 2002 with a Chinese assistant. This hospital focuses on women's and children's health, enhancing medical care in the capacity and also across the city. If you look at other aspects, China's Sierra Leone Friendship Hospital, located in Juri, Sierra Leone. This 100-bed hospital was completed in 2012 with Chinese funding and also has been instrumental in providing medical services, including during the Ebola outbreak. We can continue to go with the list. You can name the rest. If you look at Chinese involvement in the continent of Africa, it's no joke. If you look at the soft power that we talk about in the geopolitical circle, that's the reason why China is being recognized as a country that devoted its own resources and engaging regards to strategic relationship in the continent of Africa. The Masaka Hospital in Rwanda, built between 2008 and 2011 with Chinese support. This general hospital in Kigali offers a range of medical services and also operates with assistance from Chinese medical staff. If you look at the Nanguru Hospital in Uganda, constructed between 2009 and 2012 with Chinese aid, this hospital is Kampala's provide general medical services to local population. If you move a little closer, Senegal Women and Children Hospital, completed in 2019. This hospital was repurposed during the COVID-19 period pandemic and also accommodate additional patients and showcasing Chinese responsive support during healthcare crises across that region. China's geostrategic relationship is also evident across the region. These healthcare initiatives are part of China's broader strategy to enhance its influence in Africa through infrastructural development and humanitarian assistance. During his 2023 visit to Ethiopia, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Jian emphasize China's partnership with Africa in security and economic development, highlights the construction of the African Center for Disease Control and Prevention headquarters in Addis Ababa as a symbol of this cooperation. If you look at Chinese involvement in the continent of Africa, that is the reason why when the pandemic broke out, African countries were just sipping drippings and also support from their geostrategic partners. That never came. The country of South African leader, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, never missed his word when he came out clear and reminded geostrategic partners that though Africa needs support and to an extent will need their assistance, it's not a begging continent. Let's play this clip.
Now, coming to the question you raised, there are quite a number of issues that we have to embark upon for our recovery. Obviously, we have to improve our health systems. And I reject the notion that no, you can't really have the vaccines because you don't have good health systems. It is the COVID-19 that is enabling us, that is giving us the wherewithal to move forward to improve our health systems. So it cannot be conditional. We will improve our health systems as we are dealing with COVID, because every crisis in the end does yield its own benefits. And they say right now it's a crisis and we are coming up with various methods of improving our health systems. The second one obviously is economic recovery, the integration of our continent, precisely what we are working on. And the other one, of course, is the whole process of industrializing and building a manufacturing base. And this is where the North looks down on us. They say, no, you don't have, the wherewithal and all that. And we say, we are building it. And the other one is infrastructure. The infrastructure build that you're seeing here in Senegal is phenomenal. This is a country on the move. And Africa is on the move. We are improving ourselves. So we want the world to recognize us, to recognize that. And the other issue is access to finance. Another injustice that happens is this. The northern part of the world, the rich countries, have been able to borrow trillions of dollars to deal with this pandemic. But they are borrowing at almost zero interest rates. When we borrow at high interest rates. In my own country, for instance, we've got a growing deficit because most of our revenue goes towards paying debt. And we are saying we want to borrow on really preferential, including at zero interest rates, so that when we get funding, we're able to use it for developmental needs.
Democracy is important, but it does have its own limit with regards to the current challenges that the continent of Africa is facing. Like the current Secretary of State of the United States of America, Mr. Marco Rubio, once said, that the global United States of America's engagement will all depend on the United States of America's own interests. I wonder how that's working so far across the Sahel, as Russia has beaten the United States of America hands down in terms of their strategic engagement, as we see the United States of America lose soft power across the region. China has engaged in Africa's healthcare infrastructure in several ways, building hospitals in the country of Sierra Leone and a whole lot of other important infrastructure across the region. When we talk about soft power, it's not only coming from the part of democratic arrangement or negotiation. It's important to know that African nations do understand the implications and difficulties that they are going through, but more importantly, they need partners that can provide them the resources. They lack the know-how, of course, but again, their infrastructural development in terms of the healthcare has demonstrated that China understands the region, understands the challenges of Africa, and is providing the alternative that other geostrategic partners failed to deliver for the continent of Africa. In the past, a number of African leaders shamefully died in Europe looking for healthcare facilities. It is important for African governments and also their strategic partners to inform them, not even thinking about that. African administration themselves should invest in the healthcare facilities and more importantly stop this particular capital flight that have been exporting money to other countries across Europe just to come seek for healthcare. These particular facilities can still be built across the continent of Africa for those partners that cannot provide you this certain infrastructure that you need, you should go to those partners that have the resources and are willing to go for a quick pro quo. You give me this, I give you that. China hasn't hidden that particular aspect of its relationship in the continent of Africa. China continues to deliver in a whole lot of area, irrespective of the geostrategic partners' criticism. However, Chinese funding and support has its own setbacks. However, it is important to know that in the broader sense, Chinese contribution, infrastructural growth and development across the region has shown that it understands Africa's challenges, that it was once in this particular situation that the continent of Africa is at the moment. With regards to this particular aspect, the foreign minister of the country of China, Wang Yi, reiterated it and said he made no mistake and make it very clear and inform other geostrategic partners from around the world that the continent of Africa is saying something, and more importantly, the importance of Africa cannot be ignored, and he went ahead clear, without missing his word, without any condescending approach, without any paternalism. He went ahead and said this, that there will be no modernization in the global development without taking the continent of Africa along. Let's play this clip.
Last year, China successfully held the Beijing summit of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, and earlier this year in January, you made Africa your first overseas destination, visiting Nigeria, Namibia, Chad, and Congo. So now, how will China help deliver on outcomes of the FOCAC summit, and at the same time, how will China help Africa, improve better on its prosperity and development considering current challenges? Thank you.
China and Africa are always good friends, good partners, and good brothers with a shared future. Under the guidance of President Xi Jinping and African leaders, China-Africa relationship is now at its best in history. China has established strategic partnership with all African countries having diplomatic ties with it. The China-Africa community with a shared future has been elevated to an all-weather level. This year marks the 25th anniversary of FOCAC. Over the past 25 years, China has helped Africa build or upgrade nearly 100,000 kilometers of roads and more than 10,000 kilometers of railways. In the past 3 years alone, Chinese enterprises created more than 1.1 million new jobs in Africa. China has remained Africa's largest trade partner for 16 consecutive years. To African brothers and sisters, China-Africa cooperation is visible, tangible, and truly beneficial. Last year, a Gambian farmer sent a bag of rice he grew all the way to Hunan province in China to show respect to Yuan Longping, the father of hybrid rice. It is China's hybrid rice that has helped end hunger and bring hope to them. Stories like these are happening in Africa every day. Africa is a fertile land of hope of the 21st century. There will be no global modernization without African modernization. The stability of development of Africa is vital to the future of humanity, and the world must listen to Africa and heed its concerns. Africa is going through a new awakening, and countries should support Africa in exploring a new development path of self-reliance and self-strengthening. This year marks the beginning of implementing the outcomes of FOCAC Beijing Summit. China stands ready to deliver on the 10 partnership actions for China and Africa to jointly advance modernization, including supporting Africa in accelerating its industrialization and agricultural modernization, implementing zero tariff treatment for 100% tariff line, fostering new growth drivers like digital, green, and AI industries, promoting 1,000 small and beautiful livelihood projects, enhancing governance experience sharing, and raising the representation and voice of Africa in international affairs. This year, the G20 summit will be held on the African continent for the first time. China firmly supports South Africa in carrying out its duty as G20 president and in leaving a distinctively African mark in global governance.
I want to thank you for watching. I will be looking forward to meeting you soon in our next episode. Smash the like button and share the video, and have a good day. Bye-bye.